how do these limiting beliefs even get started? Where on earth did they even come from? And what is the mechanism by which we catch ourselves doing these self-limiting behaviors, or what we might call self-sabotage? Well, through our experience, we have kind of this variety of what I call micro-traumas. So there are times when we experience huge life-altering trauma, and those things affect us powerfully. We're often aware of kind of the ways in which that translates into our experience and our belief system, but sometimes we overlook small-scale experiences that also leave a very lasting impact. So if you start to think about it, you can probably pinpoint some of these micro-traumas. So some examples are that crush you had in kindergarten when you wrote that love letter to that little boy or little girl, and they never looked at you again, and they never talked to you again. Hello, rejection. There's a micro trauma there. You had a very early experience of rejection. Or it may have been something that happened more recently. It could have been last week, where maybe you had some content that you put out there into 15 different groups, and no one even commented or liked it or anything, or worse, maybe you got some negative reactions or feedbacks. That's like a little micro trauma too, because it's another experience of rejection or disappointment. So what happens when we have these little snapshot experiences of rejection or disappointment is that a little part of ourselves that in the NLP world we call the SubPersona, it breaks off from the unified whole of who we are. And that little microparticle of you is absolutely terrified of experiencing more hurt, more rejection, etc. So contrary, when we think about self-sabotage, it's actually not about harming ourselves. We kind of have this silly cliche of saying, oh, he shot himself in the foot, which is a rather unnecessarily violent cliche, but more importantly, it's inherently incorrect. So your subpersona, that little microparticle of you, the one that's causing the self-sabotage, it's actually not out to harm you. Quite the opposite. It is a part of you whose sole goal is to keep you safe. Its goal is to keep you safe. It's that little part of you that will go to great lengths to keep you safe. And your subpersona will show up when you're thinking about trying something new or putting yourself out there again. You can kind of think of it as the best friend who's been by your side, as the same guy broke your heart over and over, and she's saying, we just can't go through this again, and she's hiding his letters and hanging up his phone calls. That's like your subpersona's role. When it's time for you to go public or to do those kind of emotionally risky things and put yourself out there, your subpersona is going, oh, nope, 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 we're going to clean the kitchen. Yep, that's what we're going to do now. So when you catch yourself leaning towards not doing something because of a fear of rejection, that subpersona is active in there and its intentions are really good. The problem is you really do want to publish that book or launch that program or webinar, and you know you need to live stream or share your content or do all of these kind of scary, vulnerable things to make that happen. And after all, we can't live inside of a closet just because some idiot troll made a nasty comment somewhere along the way. And I've had that happen to me many, many times. And it definitely shakes my self-confidence when it happens. But we can't just hide, not if we want to be successful. So what do we do with this lovely subpersona who is just trying so hard to keep us safe, but is ultimately hampering our goals? Well, what we want to do here is to reintegrate that subpersona back into the fold. The subpersona needs some love. It needs to be acknowledged and worked with, and not further squashed down or ignored. Bullying it or trying to muscle up is not a long-term sustainable solution. So we have to talk to it. And we can think of it as kind of like a small child that, if left unattended, might eat the entire cookie jar and make a big mess in the kitchen while you're trying to clean the kitchen, if you let them. But if you engage them instead in a constructive task, something that they can become a part of your bigger picture of what you're trying to accomplish, then they can be constructively occupied and can actually contribute to the bigger picture goal. So the first thing here is to make the abstract tangible. Now, some of these concepts we're discussing can seem pretty hard to kind of get your mind around because they're all internal things that are happening within yourself, and it can really help to make it tangible. So we imagine that little subpersona as an actual thing or personality. You can give it color, you can give it texture. You can give it a personality where it's a cartoon, or it can be an object, or a person, or an animal. Give it as much detail and description as possible so that you can really see it. And now when you feel like you have a pretty clear image of that subpersona, you call it gently out into your hand and have a conversation with it. So you'd begin by asking it what its goal is. Usually, the subpersona's goal is some version of safety, well-being, acceptance, things like that. You want to find out what it's really driving at. This can be easier sometimes if you kind of close your eyes and really envision having a chat with it. And you may need more time, than we have live here on this webinar. So feel free to go and do this on your own later on. And just remember that there's no wrong way to do this because it's all you. It's just a dialogue between you and you. So you can improvise and you can do it however you would like. And it's helpful to kind of thank the subpersona for the work that it has done, despite the fact that you might be feeling a little frustrated if it's hemming you up from your focus. You can thank it for trying to keep you safe. And then ask it if it would be willing to work together to come up with a new focus that still achieves its goal. So letting the subpersona know that you do really want to create this book, this webinar, this program, this course. It's important to you. And by not doing this thing that you were born and created to do, you're kind of feeling unsatisfied and perhaps even a little rejected yourself, like you're rejecting yourself in a way. So all of its efforts to protect you have actually caused some harm. And then you can brainstorm together with your subpersona a new way for that part of you to still keep you safe, but without derailing the project. So you're creating alignment between yourself and this part of yourself. You're integrating this part of yourself, the subpersona, back into the fold, giving it a new occupation with the big picture goal. So if its motivation is to keep you safe or to prevent rejection, what task could it take on to foster that and still be part of the bigger goal? Making your content really slam dunk and amazing, or maybe helping you figure out the filter on a live stream, give it something new to work on that still supports that goal, but also supports your bigger picture project.